Here we go. Welcome into the show. This is Philadelphia Eagles Now by Chat Sports. My name is Chase Sr., and as always, no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. What we're getting into, going to go through all of the Eagles pre-draft visits as of right now. The list of known prospects going into the 2025 NFL Draft that the Eagles have met with or are set to meet with. And I'll tell you this. This is pretty significant because since Howie Roseman took back control of the front office after Chip Kelly basically banished him out of the building, pre-draft visits have been an indication of the Eagles' first-round interest. So Chip Kelly took back control of this Eagles front office player personnel back in 2016. That's when the Philadelphia Eagles drafted Carson Wentz out of North Dakota State after they moved up a couple of times up the draft board and took Wentz after Jared Goff. And Carson Wentz took a pre-draft visit to Philadelphia. In 2017, Derek Barnett, the sack master from Tennessee, he also visited the Eagles in the pre-draft process. In 2018, Philadelphia traded out of the first round. In 2019, the Eagles surprised a lot of people by drafting Andre Dillard out of Washington State. Started off rough for him. He had admitted that he was dealing with some mental challenges. Then he played pretty well. Then he signed a big free agency deal with the Tennessee Titans, and he ended up being a huge bust. He did not go on a pre-draft visit to the NovaCare complex in South Philadelphia. Unfortunately, Jalen Reagor did, and then the Eagles took him ahead of Justin Jefferson, but the following year, Howie Roseman was able to right his wrong, and he took Devontae Smith, the Heisman Trophy winner, who goes down as one of the best wide receivers in the history of college football. That year was unique. There were no pre-draft visits allowed because of COVID-19. How far we've come since then. My goodness, what a disaster that time period was. 2022, Eagles took Jordan Davis, moved up in the draft to take him right ahead of Kyle Hamilton. As of right now, hasn't been the best pick for Philadelphia, but Davis did attend a pre-draft visit with the Eagles in 2023. Philadelphia tapping into that Georgia pipeline for the second consecutive draft, and Howie Roseman took Jalen Carter, number 9, Nolan Smith, number 30, and both of those players were in the city of brotherly love for pre-draft visits. In 2024, Eagles took Quinyon Mitchell in the first round out of Toledo. They got the best corner in the draft with the 22nd overall pick. And Quinyon Mitchell was on a pre-draft visit to the Eagles. So you get the point here. Since 2016, 7 of 9 first-round picks for the Eagles have been on pre-draft visits with Philadelphia. That's 77% for Howie Roseman and company. And so we flip the page to the list of pre-draft visits. These are players who have visited with Philadelphia or are scheduled to meet with the Eagles. Josh Conerly, offensive tackle out of Oregon. Marcus Mbow, offensive tackle out of Purdue. Anthony Belton, massive offensive tackle out of NC State. Jalen Travis, the Iowa State product, also an offensive tackle, so a lot of offensive linemen there. Maxwell Hairston, a speedy corner out of Kentucky. Elijah Roberts, edge rusher, SMU. They had a great year, ended up making it to the college football playoff. They obviously fell short in that first round in Happy Valley against Penn State. Donovan Ezeiruaku. I've been trying to get this pronunciation right all day. Ezeiruaku, I think, is the proper pronunciation. Got to go through it a couple of times, but talented edge rusher out of Boston College. Tyler Barron, edge rusher, Miami, the U. Jayden Blue ran a sub-4.3 40-yard dash at his pro day. Very talented running back out of Texas. He is set to meet with the Eagles. And then Charles Grant, small school guy, William and Mary, he played offensive tackle there. Could be another developmental project for Jeff Stoutland. So, plenty more to get to here on the show, but today's poll question is this: which position do you want the Eagles to draft in the first round? They have a couple of different needs. A lot of people have different preferences. They should just go best player available, in my opinion. But what position do you want the Eagles to draft in that first round? Let me know down in the comment section right now. You see, I'm rocking my Eagles Super Bowl gear. You can get yours right now at chatsports.com/EaglesSB. There is so much available thanks to our friends at Fanatics, but when you use that link down below. Fanatics knows that Chase Sr., Eagles Now, and Chat Sports sent you. There are shirts, there are hoodies, there are hats, there are jerseys, and plenty of different options available. We've been pushing this for a long time, and for our audience watching in every pocket of America and worldwide, they've been able to take advantage of those deals. It's chatsports.com/EaglesSB. Celebrate that Eagles Super Bowl 59 championship after they routed the Kansas City Chiefs by getting your merchandise today. Going to put that link down below in the show notes and attached to the pinned comment of today's Philadelphia Eagles. Now, so as far as these pre-draft visits go, let's talk about all of these prospects here. Josh Conerly, offensive tackle out of Oregon, in the pre-draft process at the NFL Combine, earning an 8.77 relative athletic score grade. A little bit short for an offensive tackle at 6'4", 311 pounds. The weight is fine there. Very athletic, good vertical leap. That short area explosion, I think, is always important for an offensive tackle because it's an indication of how they can get into their pass rush sets. And at that weight, he ran just over 5 seconds in the 40-yard dash. Sometimes his play strength consistently can be a little bit of a problem. I'll tell you what, though, he had some really good reps for Oregon this past season as the Ducks made that transition to the Big Ten. And in the Big Ten, you're going up against some of the top defensive linemen in the country. Overall Pro Football Focus grade of 78.1, pass blocking grade of 83.5, run blocking grade of 72.5. Only gave up 1 sack, though, and 4 penalties. Only 6 hurries allowed. And he's a player who I wouldn't want the Eagles to take at 32. I think he's better slated as a second-round selection, but of course that's within range for Philadelphia if they decide to trade out of 32 to get an additional second-round pick. What I think Howie Roseman does, I don't think he trades out of 32 to move back. I think if Howie were to do that, he likes the value of the draft board and maybe he would move up. If you go back and watch the Big Ten championship game, by the way, Josh Conerly had a really strong game against Abdul Carter. Good rep after good rep after good rep. Abdul Carter is my number 1 player on my big board going into the 2025 draft. I think he's a freakishly talented edge rusher. And so for Conerly to hold up well against Abdul Carter, very impressive. And that's a sign of what he can become. For Marcus Mbow, another player whose play strength sometimes lacks consistency. And his athleticism, it's not the end-all be-all, but it is at least something. And last year, he did have some moments where he looked really good. He had some moments where it's questionable as far as what his upside is at the next level. What's good about him, his positional versatility. In college, he played right guard and right tackle. Plenty of snaps at both of those positions, and he even sprinkled in a little bit of left guard, too, in the 2021 season. This is a player, of course, again, that Jeff Stoutland can mold into a really good player. His PFF grade's not as good as Josh Conerly, but solid. 73 overall grade, pass blocking grade needs some work at 68, run blocking grade of 77.2, 3 sacks allowed, 5 penalties. As far as the hurry numbers go, this is where that lack of quickness is concerning to me and why I think he might be better as a guard potentially as compared to being a tackle. He gave up 21 hurries. There's also a mountain of a man who the Eagles are meeting with in the pre-draft, and that's this man right here, Anthony Belton out of NC State. Had an opportunity to catch up with him at the NFL Combine when I got wind that he was going to meet up with the Eagles, and we'll play that clip here in just a moment. In 741 snaps last year, 73.7 overall PFF grade, really good pass blocker at that size, light feet, and he can move pretty well for being a massive, massive cat. Run blocking grade of 69.4. He does look pretty good getting out in space to that second and third level, but his technique can be cleaned up a little bit. 3 sacks allowed, 8 penalties. The pressure numbers given up, not bad. The hurry numbers given up, 8. Keep in mind, not playing with the best quarterback in college football within that NC State program. And when I talked to Belton at the NFL Combine, I asked him, And I told him, right, this is an Eagles organization that really, really values offensive linemen. Howie Roseman calls it an unhealthy obsession, and they have one of the best offensive line coaches in the entire National Football League, and this is already an offensive line that is loaded with a couple of All-Pros, Pro Bowlers, and Lane Johnson, a potential future Hall of Famer.
It was a good conversation.
You have a top 30 visit set up with the Philadelphia Eagles. How did that conversation come about?
I just found out yesterday, so I just talked with my agent. We're just recapping how the week been going, how meetings went, formals and stuff. But I found out last night that I got the visit with the Eagles in April.
To get informed about that, knowing that they won the Super Bowl, how does that make you feel?
Yeah, it's crazy, especially just all the offensive linemen they got there, seeing what they do. Because I watched a lot of tape of NFL, just seeing what they did this past year when it came to protecting Jalen Hurts, running the ball. They had a phenomenal year. So just seeing what they have been building is pretty crazy, seeing that on TV.
How familiar are you with Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata?
I'm very familiar. We watch a lot with Coach 2J. He's big on try to watching tape, learning from the best. So I've always watched their tape and just seeing how, because both of them top divisions, seeing how different things when it comes to pass setting, like a lot of with Lane Johnson, like a lot of him hiding his run tails and stuff like that, his standstill. So just trying to see what they do and try to implement it in your game, really.
Earlier this week, Howie Roseman called his team-building philosophy along the trenches a healthy obsession. What's your reaction to that?
I like it, man. It's all start up front. You gotta the trench work, man. We trench money, so it all start up front, man. You gotta get your trench money to protect the guys that matter in the back.
And for Belton and the relative athletic score grade there, he's in the green. A lot of good here. 8.14 overall grade. 6'6", 330-plus pounds. Are you kidding me? With the 40-yard dash at 5.28. So he's in the yellow there, but you have to factor in he ran that speed at that size. Jalen Travis started his college career at Oklahoma State. Then he transferred to Iowa State, more than 1,400 snaps at left tackle, 501 at right tackle. So he's that tackle versatility here. I know the Eagles signed Kendall Lamb, who is 32 years old and can fulfill that backup swing tackle role. Darian Kennard is going to be a part of that competition as well, but the Eagles could use some youth at that offensive tackle spot for a player to develop. For Travis, he had an RAS score of 991, 6'7", nearly 340 pounds, clocked a 5.14 40-yard dash, and look at the vertical leap, 35 inches, and the broad jump north of 9 feet. And I want to reiterate here, Howie Roseman loves building in the trenches. So while you might not think it's sexy to go offensive line in round 1 at 32, it is always in play for Philadelphia. Before we continue to push forward, be sure to give me a follow on X and Instagram. You can find me on both social media platforms at Chase_Senior, reaching millions of people per month on Instagram, millions of people per month on X. Put out plenty of Eagles content over there, so hit me up. Maxwell Hairston's a really interesting player, cornerback, and we know that the Eagles lost Darius Slay and Isaiah Rodgers in free agency. I think the Eagles are very high on Keely Ringo, rightfully so. Very high on Eli Ricks. He too has a lot of potential. And the Eagles did sign Adoree Jackson to a 1-year contract in free agency, but it should never sway you from a youth movement. This is partially why the Eagles are so loaded right now and why their roster was so good when they won the Super Bowl, because Howie Roseman has drafted so well. And so if a player like Hairston is on the board, you love the value, you love the player, you go after him, and you figure out the depth and the role a little bit later. He did only play 7 games last year for Kentucky because of a shoulder injury, but in those 7 games, 5 pass breakups, 1 pick, allowed a quarterback rating when targeted of 78.2. He was thrown toward 22 times, gave up 12 catches, 0 touchdowns in coverage. What I like about him, in 32 career games played, 16 pass breakups, 6 interceptions, and 3 touchdowns. So he is a big-time playmaker with good instincts, with an ability to make plays on the football. He also ran very well at the NFL Combine. If I'm not mistaken, it was the fastest time among all players in Indianapolis, a 4.28. The size, it's fine. I know that Math Bomb has it in the yellow and the red there. 5'11", 183 at that cornerback spot. I worry more about your instincts, your ability to make plays on the football, and your speed, because those traits are very important at that cornerback spot. Now we shift gears to Elijah Roberts, defensive end out of Southern Methodist. He is a day 2, day 3 player, not a first-round option in my eyes. 6'3", 285 though, so has a lot of size. At 285, ran a 4.78. I think teams would really like him to run a little bit faster. And then Boston College's own Donovan Ezeiruaku, there's some really good production here. And you look at the pressure numbers the last 3 years in particular. While at Boston College playing in the ACC, that's a good conference, 60 pressures and 16 and a half sacks in 2024. The year prior, the sack numbers were nowhere close to that, but he had 34 pressures. And then in 2022, the sack numbers did go in a positive direction, 7.5 with 35 pressures. So that's 3 straight years of a lot of production as far as making an impact of getting to the quarterback. 35 pressures as a sophomore, 34 as a junior, and 60 as a senior, as everything really came together in his final year in college football. What's concerning about him? This is a player who, this is a classic example of them, the tape looks better than what the athletic testing was. Only 6'2", 248, so some teams might not like the lack of weight there. He did not run the 40-yard dash. What's good, though? Again, short area quickness. That's really important at the line of scrimmage. Once that ball gets snapped, how quickly are you? How quickly can you win your matchups? And the vertical leap, 35.5 inches. The broad, 9 feet 11 inches. That's in the green there. The RAS score, I think, docked a little bit because he didn't run the 40. The lack of size, a little bit of a concern. But the tape does not lie for this player here. Tyler Barron, you look at what he's been able to do in his career. 5.5 sacks in 2024, 48 pressures. 6 sacks in 2023, 41 pressures. 2.5 sacks in 2022, 29 pressures. And even in his first year at Tennessee, before he transferred, obviously, to Miami for his final year, 4 sacks and 32 pressures. He graded out well athletically with the testing in Indianapolis, 9.3 relative athletic score grade, and he's bigger than Ezeiruaku, 6'4", 258 pounds, and he was able to run a 4.62 40-yard dash. Maybe the most intriguing player to a lot of people on this list, as far as the pre-draft visits for Philadelphia, is Texas running back Jaydon Blue. I know that the Eagles signed Saquon Barkley to a contract extension, and they gave him a lot of guaranteed money. Record and average annual value, record guaranteed money. I know that Will Shipley is a backup. I know that they signed A.J. Dillon. I like Will Shipley. I like the addition of A.J. Dillon as a short yardage back. But the Eagles have an opportunity here to draft another playmaker, and here's the benefit of where the Eagles are. They don't have a lot of needs on this roster, so they can afford to go with a player like this very early who's a home run hitter for this offense. And as we know, shelf life for running backs, it's not long. Saquon Barkley's 28, is going to be 29 around this time next year. You always have to plan ahead and have contingency plans. That's what good businesses do. That's what good organizations do. And I love the game of Blue. I also like his versatility as a player. He can run it, of course. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. In 2024, 134 carries, 730 yards, 5.4 yards per carry, 42 catches for 368 yards. 14 total touchdowns, does have a little bit of a fumbling issue. And that is a problem for me that can be cleaned up, though, ball security-wise, with quality coaching. His career numbers really didn't break out until his final season with Texas, and this is after the Longhorns had a lot of injuries at that position, but then Blue really took advantage of his opportunities, like the receiving ability, and the Eagles value the receiving ability in their running backs. LaShawn McCoy, Brian Westbrook, Saquon Barkley, Will Shipley, Kenneth Gainwell. Over time, the Eagles have brought in, drafted, and developed a lot of running backs who can be utilized in the pass game. And of course, they have the vision, the athleticism, and the running talent as a running back. And then there's Charles Grant, who is from William & Mary, obviously small school level, but the Eagles have done such a good job of identifying some of these small school players or under the radar players and banking on their coaching staff and player development factory to maximize these types of players. Jalix Hunt, nobody thought he was going to be a third-round pick. The Eagles took Jordan Mailata late in the draft. Nobody even knew who he was. All we saw on draft day, on day 3 that year, 2018, was rugby highlights. So Charles Grant is a player who had a 90.7 Pro Football Focus grade last year for William & Mary, gave up 2 sacks, 1 hit, 6 hurries, 7 penalties. I don't think he's going to be able to play right away at a high level, but again, what have I said a couple of times here on this show? A Jeff Stoutland developmental project. If you want some more draft talk, I have you covered. We do it all here on Eagles Now because I believe this is the standard for Eagles talk right here on YouTube. Nobody does it like we do it. Nobody steps like we step. So hit that subscribe button right now.